Yesterday, fellow content creator Sheep Rampage released a video on the Fazbear Fanverse and its controversies. In response, PopGo's developer and Fazbear Fanverse Initiative member Kane made the following tweet. 1. PopGo's Arcade releases on Steam, 98% rating. 2. Funko and U2's merch out this year. 3. Nixon is allowed to work on the joy of creation again. 4. Fiznom with plenty of FNAF Plus dev updates. Every FNAF YouTuber in the world. The Fanverse is a failure. Scott failed us. The initiative is doomed. Fuck you, bitch. Why you always got something negative to say? Oh boy. Kane, I was very hurt by your tweet and its implications. I hope this video demonstrates that despite what you may believe, I have always been extremely positive about all of your projects. On August 21st of 2020, Scott introduced one of the coolest projects any game developer has ever launched, the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative. To the Fanverse's credit, most of these games are going fine. Flumpty's 3 was great, FNAF Plus looks sick, while PopGo's Evergreen and Candies are clearly moving along in development. I encourage everyone to please check out FNAF Plus, as well as other existing Fazbear Fanverse projects. Don't get me wrong, I'm also really stoked for the upcoming Fanverse titles, but I can't deny that I'm most excited for FNAF Plus. Kane Carter, director of the acclaimed PopGo's series, explains how prior to the Fanverse, there was no reasonable way to put FNAF fan games on any other platforms, and especially no way to make any money from them. Okay, I swear we checked this place, but perhaps not. I love FNAF fan games, and they've gotten a handful of developers their start, and I think the Fazbear Fanverse is the perfect compromise. The idea of potentially turning this hobby into somewhat of a job was a dream come true. Even if the series continues to go more and more mainstream, and even if subsequent games are very derivative of Security Breach, Scott can use a portion of the revenue from those projects to fund community-made, independent FNAF stuff. The Fanverse was a really novel idea. Fiznom clearly isn't lamenting Scott's lack of intervention here. They're just explaining that Scott deliberately kept distance from the games. If we go back to Scott's initial announcement of the Fanverse, he said from the very start that he was, and I quote, going to stay out of the development side of things so that these creators can do their thing. That's a good thing, and Scott is correct to let these creators create. If you start working on a FNAF fan game for fun, the Fanverse is a really amazing way for you to turn what you expected to be a hobby into what could be the start of a successful career, and that's awesome. I said in my prior video that I have a lot of hope for the Fanverse. I think using some of the profits from the more mainstream FNAF games to help fund independent, darker, community-made ones is the coolest idea. I can understand that integrating a series like PopGo's or Candies allows them to make a bunch of merchandise based on these derivative characters and generate a lot of money. That's fine. I presume that also generates money for the developers of those games, which is great. That's all I want. There ought to be something for everybody in the new FNAF franchise. When Kane Carter was making the early PopGo's titles, when Fiznom made a Shadow over Freddy's, or when Emil made the Candy series, when the early Flumpty's titles were coming out, there was no Fanverse. There was no chance of getting published or getting paid. There was no fame or fortune. These people did it out of passion, and after working hard, proving themselves, and finding success, they were rewarded with a very specific, cool opportunity. The Polygon article seems to suggest that this is some great difficulty for the Fanverse creators, but that just doesn't seem like the case. It seems like it's by design. I also encourage Scott to expand the Fanverse outside of games. Why not include all sorts of community content? Art, videos, music, everything. But you can still do what people like Kane Carter and Emil did. You can still make a popular fan game series that garners its own fan base and becomes something bigger. However, the priority of the Fanverse should be uplifting talented fan developers and allowing them to devote more time to and be able to personally benefit from their games. And I'm hoping that will be confirmed as the rest of the Fanverse comes out. I'm hoping that is the emphasis. The FNAF franchise will never be the same as it used to be. That's true. However, it could be just as good as it was before. Heck, it could be way better, and I'm optimistic that in time, it will be. The motivations and intentions behind the Fanverse were obviously good. I think this is a really fair compromise. We aren't getting any new classic-style FNAF games directly from Scott anymore anyway. The series is evolving. Thus, not only can Fanverse-funded community projects be a lot darker than the main series, but they can also continue to innovate with the classic Five Nights at Freddy's gameplay formula. Some people have a really strong allegiance towards the FNAF franchise. They see statements coming from a reputable, respected community figure like Fiznom trashing Security Breach. They see videos from people like me that ultimately draw more attention to things that sometimes don't make our community look so great, and they perceive them as threats to their own ideals for what FNAF is, or what FNAF should be. I think Fiznom, whether he intended it or not, sort of got to the heart of this issue. Criticism is good. We should be tough on the series we love. It's the only way to make them better. Ugly truths are still truths, and we can't be suppressing them just because we don't like the way it reflects on FNAF or the FNAF community or the Fanverse or whatever. Only by telling it like it is can we ensure that history doesn't repeat itself.